Hi guys, so it's time for my monthly reading wrap up. This month I read 5 books and have almost finished 2 other books, but what I think is particularly nice about this month is it's such a diverse selection of books I've been reading that I'm really excited to talk about them with you guys. First is a book I haven't reviewed yet but will be reviewing in the month to come, and it is Ali Smith's Girl Meets Boy. This is from the Canongate Myths series. That's why I had this little hardback copy, although mine has a stain on it. Like all of the books in the Canongate Myths series, it is a retelling of a myth from a specific culture. This one is taken from one specific story from Ovid, who was a Latin poet. It's a traditional Greek and Roman myth about Iphis. It's only 160 pages, so I don't want to say too much about the plot, because it's not even that plot driven. It follows 2 sisters who live in Scotland, deals with their own struggles and their struggles with one another, and just kind of finding themselves. It deals with gender and gender norms and sexuality and just all of these different themes, and like I said, I really want to do a full review of it. I really enjoyed it. It's set in a very everyday, normal world, but it's obviously been inspired by the myth of Iphis, and the myth of Iphis does get brought up within the story. Next is a book I have reviewed, however, and that is Tooth and Claw by Jo Walton. This is a high fantasy novel, and I've already mentioned this in my review and in my monthly favourites this month, but absolutely adored this book. 5 out of 5 stars for me. It's set in a Victorian-esque world, but where all the characters are dragons, and I think Jo Walton has executed this world perfectly. For me, the book was perfect. I was so absorbed in the story, and I also think it's quite nice to have a high fantasy novel that is a standalone and not also 700 pages long. I can see this being an excellent book for a lot of different people, and I would check out my review if you want to know more. But like I said, I've read a lot of different stuff this month, so the next book I read is actually a book of poetry, and it's Hughes Cruel, From the Life and Songs of the Crow. This was actually a gift to me from the lovely Jen over at Jen Campbell, and it's so wonderful. It's kind of, all of the poems in this collection are kind of based on like myths and creation legends and religious stories, and yeah, so there's like Greek myths, Bible stories, that kind of thing in here. It almost feels like it's about the journey of the universe and the journey of our world, but from the perspective of this crow. Quite dark and sinister poems, but they're very captivating, so you are really enthralled all the way through, although you might be kind of weirded out. They're kind of unsettling but beautiful. Loved this collection. I actually marked some of my favourites. I think I marked 4 which were my favourites, which were Examination at the Womb Door, Crow's Account of the Battle, Crow Blacker Than Ever, and Song for a Phallus. I also love these favourite and favourite editions of poetry. They do loads of different poets and they're so simple and gorgeous. I really want more in the collection. Continuing with my diverse selection of literature this month, the next book I have is non-fiction, and it's The Honour Code: How Moral Revolutions Happen by Kwame Anthony Appiah. This is quite a nice, compact, short non-fiction book. It was just over 200 pages, so really easy to read from cover to cover rather than one that you dip in and out of. It had a construct to follow and a really nice overarching argument and theme, so I really enjoyed reading it from cover to cover. It's split into 4 chapters, all on different examples of honour codes in different time periods and different cultures, all of which are actually modern history, so it's kind of outside of my ancient history interests, but I loved it. It was so interesting, it was so well done. I also thought the conclusion was super interesting. Don't know if I agreed with everything he said, but he certainly gave me some amazing food for thought and I think made some fantastic points. It's all about how things that are considered honourable stop being considered honourable and start being considered dishonourable in cultures. But again, this is now what I'm going to do a full review of, so if you're interested, stay tuned for that. The next novel was actually a reread for me, and it was one of the Sherlock Holmes novels. I read Valley of Fear, which is one of the 4 novels from the Sherlock Holmes series. It's actually the only novel in the Sherlock Holmes series that I haven't ever reread, and I kind of remember why. It's definitely my least favourite. I don't think it's bad, because I love Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing. I find his writing style lovely, and I love his characters and just the time period that they're set in and the mysteries, but so much of the Valley of the Fear isn't the mystery, it's the backstory, and although I usually find the backstories to the criminals or the victims really interesting, in this one it just doesn't do it for me. It's kind of about secret societies and it's quite violent and just about criminals. And I don't know, like, it just doesn't tick the boxes for me. I still think it's a good story, and if you like Sherlock Holmes, obviously I would recommend you read it, but I don't know if I'm ever going to reread it. 2 times is probably enough for me. Like I said, I'm also almost finished 2 books, or at least a good proportion of the way through, so I thought I'd briefly mention those. The first one is Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. It's a book that I bought on Sana's recommendation, and I think I also saw Lorna from Books and the Bees talk about it and make it sound really intriguing, and it is. I've got less than 100 pages to go. The YA dystopian novel set in this school where all of the girls are raised to be perfect girls, perfect wives, perfect women, or perfect concubines. It's all about being skinny and being pretty. Really just accentuates problems that exist today, which is one of the reasons it's so disturbing to see the characters react, because it doesn't almost feel that far off from things going on in our world. Although I was really, really enjoying it, it's not a happy book in any way, really. So I'm kind of ready for it to be over, just because I'm ready for the kind of sadness to be over, but I have been really enjoying it. I think it's very interesting and mysterious and well written and fleshed out. Also, just a bit of a trigger warning. This is going to be a very sensitive subject for some people. If you're currently struggling with any eating disorders like bulimia or body dysmorphia or anorexia, then I mean, I would warn you that this is quite a triggering book. The next one that I'm halfway through at the moment and absolutely adoring is Émile Zola's Therese Raquin. This book's from the 1800s and it's set in France, and it follows our main character Therese Raquin, who is the wife of her sickly cousin, and she's just kind of miserable and she starts having an affair. But I can sense violence to come, and it's just quite like a dark story and really intriguing and really well written and beautiful, and it kind of deals with the inner conflict between man and animal and beast, and yeah, loving this book. This edition is from Vintage Classics, because you might want to know since it's stunning. But yes, those are all the books that I have read or been reading this month, and if you've read any of them, please let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!